ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
तद्ब्रूहि असंगो जडवन् निगूढ़
तद्ब्रूहि असंगो
असंगो जडवन्न
विज्ञान वीर्यो विचरस्य अपारः।
विज्ञान वीर्यो विचरस्य अपारः।
वचांसि योग ग्रथितानि साधो
वचांसि योग ग्रथितानि साधो
ननः क्षमन्ते मनसापि भेत्तुम्।
न क्षमन्ते मनसापि भेत्तुम्।
Married Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Good. You can read Prabhuji, no problem. Okay, I'll read then. Translation. My dear sir, it appears that the influence of your great spiritual knowledge has been actually you are bereft of all material association and fully absorbed in the thought of the Supreme. Consequently, you are unlimitedly advanced in spiritual knowledge. Please tell me why you are wandering around like a dullard. O great saintly person, you have spoken words approved by the yogic process, but it is not possible for us to understand what you have said. Therefore, kindly explain it. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Saintly people like Jada Bharat do not speak ordinary words. Whatever they say is approved by great yogis and those advanced in spiritual life. That is the difference between ordinary people and saintly people. The listener must also be advanced to understand the words of such exalted, spiritually advanced people as Jada Bharat. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjun, not to others. Lord Krishna especially selected Arjun for instruction in spiritual knowledge because Arjun happened to be a great devotee and confidential friend. Similarly, great personalities also speak to the advanced, not to the Shudras, Vaishyas, women, or unintelligent men. Sometimes it is very risky to give great philosophical instructions to ordinary people. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the benefit of the fallen souls of Kali Yuga, has given us a very nice instrument, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The general mass of people, although Shudras and less, can be purified by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Then they can understand the exalted philosophical statements of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Our Krishna consciousness movement has therefore adopted the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for the general masses. When people gradually become purified, they are instructed in the lessons of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Materialistic people like Stri, Shudra, and Vijabandhu cannot understand words of spiritual advancement, yet one can take to the shelter of a Vaishnava, for he knows the art of enlightening even Shudras in the highly elevated subject matter spoken in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So, in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, that this knowledge may not be given to those who are not austere. Those who are. Wait, I'll just quote this exact verse here. Here, so text 67 of the 18th chapter, Krishna is saying, Idam te nata paskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na chashru shushave vachyam na cha mamyo bhyasuyati. This confidential knowledge may not be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. So, in the 9th chapter of Gita, Krishna has earlier explained that this transcendental knowledge is so wonderful that it can even deliver those born in sinful births, sinful species, Stri, Vaishya, Tatha, Shudra. Now, you see, there is no discrimination here. We are not kind of creating some kind of class or gender discrimination, but we are just sticking to the basic facts. When one becomes overly materialistic in his thought process, he has to take the body of either a woman, Shudra, or a Vaishya. These are species which are heavily influenced by the lower modes of nature. And that's why we see it's so difficult. In this age of Kali, actually, practically everyone is a Shudra. So, and one symptom of a Shudra, why Krishna is not advising Arjun to give this message to those who are envious. The reason is that Shudras, they have low intelligence. Now, a Shudra may be an engineer or doctor, he may even be a top class bureaucrat or anything, but he's a Shudra. His intelligence is of lower nature. Now, this is something that many people fail to understand. A very exalted degree from some popular institution or some very high advanced training, that is not a symptom of a Brahmana. So one may become a brilliant engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or bureaucrat, but one will still be a Shudra. In a Shudra society, one has to be a Shudra only to be a leader of Shudras. This is not a place for Brahmanical people. Therefore, we see that many people, in spite of being very advanced in material education, cannot accept Bhagavad Gita. They're not able to understand it. Another symptom of a Shudra is that Shudra becomes very proud. Little bit of knowledge, a little bit of austerity, and Shudra is immediately proud. Shudra doesn't understand the real objective of that knowledge. Shudra doesn't really understand how it has to be applied, but he's just eager to have the knowledge and feel proud of acquiring the knowledge, because he's lacking in that kind of purity. He lacks in that kind of austerity, lacks that purity. Therefore, a little bit of knowledge immediately makes the Shudra proud. In the Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, Krishna is saying, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Shunicha Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. That means knowledge and humility. Knowledge automatically gives humility. The more we advance in knowledge, we immediately understand how insignificant we are. When we try to understand the infinite nature of the Supreme, we immediately see how insignificant we are and how insignificant our knowledge is. Therefore, a Brahmana becomes very humble. So in that verse, if we see Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Panditaha Samdarshina. What does that really mean? A Pandita, a well-qualified scholar, an advanced spiritualist, immediately sees that all the living entities are on the same platform. They are all spiritual beings. This doesn't mean that he sees everything as equal, which is the vision of Mayavad. But what it means is that the Brahmana, the advanced Pandita, he immediately understands that all the spiritual beings are qualitatively one, but they are influenced by modes of nature in different ways. So Brahmana will show compassion to all living entities. So a Pandita. So this compassion to a Brahmana would be in the form of giving spiritual knowledge. The compassion to an animal would be giving some food. In this way, compassion is shown to different bodies according to the capacity which they can accept. So here also, Mahaprabhu was also preaching in this way. To the general masters of Shudras, fools, Mahaprabhu was simply giving the chanting of the holy names. To his own disciples, he was giving the knowledge of the Bhagavatam. And to his intimate associates, he was giving the knowledge of the highest rasas of Krishna's relationships. So we see sometimes, very eager devotees are talking about Ras Leela of Krishna. I know so many devotees who talk about very intimate Leelas of Krishna and eventually just leave the movement and run away with some girl or something. Which means that they never had any realization. It was just knowledge they had, and out of pride and eagerness, they were just distributing that knowledge, which they were not qualified to distribute. So spiritual life means we have to be highly realized. So Krishna consciousness movement is based on chanting. Chanting purifies us. See, materialistic people like Stri, Shudra and Dvijabandhu cannot understand words of spiritual advancement. Yet one can take this to the shelter of a Vaishnava, for he knows the art of enlightening even Shudras in a highly elevated subject matter spoken in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So tadvidhi pranipatena pare prashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Because the spiritual master is tattvadarshi, he knows how to deliver that knowledge. But tattvadarshi, that means he is not just knowledgeable, he has realized the knowledge. Tattvadarshi, not tattvajnani. He has darshan. He has realized that knowledge. So now we see the character of Maharaj Raghugana, that even though he was apparently acting out of passion and he was behaving in a very bad way, but still when he heard the instructions, immediately his class showed up. his level of education, his character showed out. He's shown out. And he's now taking the shelter of Maharaj of Jadabharat and taking proper spiritual instructions from him. So sometimes you see, even in our movement, like devotees, they just want to learn some books and then they want to become immediately accomplished. Now I am a Pandit. Now I know. I have memorized the verses of Gita. I know so much. I am preaching. These are symptoms of a Shudra. Actually, if one feels any trace of pride in one's own abilities, one should understand that he is a Shudra. Because Brahmana means Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. That means he immediately understands that this is not my qualification, but rather it is the effulgence of Brahman which is coming from within me. Or rather, it is the mercy of the Lord which is showing through me. Therefore, he feels even more humbled. Hare Krishna. Is any questions or comments here?
Hare Krishna, no problem.
Dandapram.
When we were talking chanting of Mahamantra for purification today's time. But all the mantras, or Vedic mantras, they start with Om. Why the Mahamantra doesn't start with Om?
Because it is Mahamantra. It is Mahamantra. It includes Om.
I will understand, you will understand. But how a common person, a new person, he said, look, when the mantra is starting with the Om, why Mahamantra, which is greater, should not start with Om?
Because Krishna itself is Om. See, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, of all the sounds, I am Pranava Omkar. What does that mean? Krishna and his name are not different. So Krishna is Om. So, I mean, newcomer, what is the value of a newcomer? He's a Shudra. Like, he has to just accept the knowledge. He can't question these things. If he's not willing to accept even this much knowledge. See, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is not just a mantra, it's a prayer also.
It's a new person who has to be, he's genuinely asking, not that he's showing up or anything. His inquisitiveness.
Yeah. So,
something, he's asking a simple question. Mantra is starting, all mantras is starting with Om. But why the mantra which you call the Mahamantra and all the mantras should not be started Om, because Om means Krishna.
Krishna, yeah, Krishna's name himself is there. Hare Krishna. Oh Lord Krishna. This is directly recitation of Omkar.
I see.
So there is no difference. Like Krishna is explaining in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, where he is explaining that of all the sounds, I am Omkar. So that means by calling out to Krishna, you are calling Om. So when Om is invoked, we are invoking auspiciousness. But when we are addressing Krishna himself directly, we don't need to call. When suppose you are living with somebody, you're not going to call your wife Mrs. Mehrotra. She's your wife. You call her by her first name. But when it's a formal setting, then you say Mrs. or Mr. So this is how it goes.
This is a good interpretation. I quite agree. The whole thing is Krishna itself.
But we don't. But then again, to your question, there is one more explanation. We don't chant Hare Krishna directly. We say Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. So we start with the invocations, Mangalacharana. In Mangalacharana, Om is recited. So yes, in a way, Omkar is, we recite Omkar before we start with Hare Krishna chanting. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya.
Most of us, we've been practicing. It starts with Om. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Sri Advaita. With that mantra, we start the chanting of the Mahamantra.
Yeah, but we have to offer prayers to the spiritual master also. Then Panchatattva.
Yeah, that depends. Okay.
I mean, it will work if you just chant Hare Krishna without anything. That is still going to work, but it's like bad etiquette.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mean to say that this Hare Krishna mantra that we are chanting is a more informal and more intimate way of calling out to Krishna?
Yes. Oh Krishna, oh energy of Krishna, oh Krishna, engage me in your service. So this is as intimate as it gets.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why actually most of the Vaishnava mantras also start with the invocation of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Om is recited, but in Hare Krishna mantra, it need not be, because it is Om itself. It is the source of Om. Okay, yeah. So we continue. Text 19. Aham cha Yogeshwaram Atma Tattva
Aham cha Yogeshwaram Atma Tattva
Vidam Muninam Paramam Gurum Vai
Vidam Muninam
Prashtum Pravratta Kim Iharanam Tat
Prashtum pravrittah kshim iharanam tat
Sakshat Dharim Jnana Kalavatirnam.
Sakshat Dharam
Sakshad Dharim Jnana Kalavatirnam.
merit.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Translation purport by Sri Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. I consider your good self the most exalted master of mystic power. You know the spiritual science perfectly well. You are the most exalted of all the learned sages, and you have descended for the benefit of all human society. You have come to give spiritual knowledge, and you are a direct representative of Kapil Dev, the incarnation of God and the plenary portion of the knowledge. I am therefore asking you, O spiritual master, what is the most secure shelter in this world? Purport. The Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam api sarvanam mat gatitan atam atmana sadavan bhakti yumam samam to mataha. All yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transitional loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Jad Bharat was a perfect yogi. He was formerly the emperor Bharat Maharaj, and he was now the most exalted personality among learned sages and master of mystic powers. Although Jad Bharat was an ordinary living entity, he had inherited all the knowledge given by the Supreme Personality Godhead Kapil Dev. He could therefore be taken directly to the Supreme Personality Godhead as confirmed by the Venkatesh Chakravarti Thakur in his stanzas of the spiritual master, Sakshat Dharpin Samast Sast. Exalted personality like Jadbharat is as good as Supreme Personality of Godhead because he fully represents the Lord by giving knowledge to others. Jadbharat is herein accepted as his direct representative of Supreme Personality of Godhead because he was imparting knowledge on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Maharaj Raghunath concluded that it was appropriate to ask about Atma Tattva, the spiritual science. Tad Vijin Vitis Se Gurum Avabhikyate. This Vedic injunction is also confirmed here. If anyone is at all interested in knowledge of the spiritual science, Brahma Jigyas, he must approach Guru like Jad Bharat. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. I consider your good self to be the most exalted master of mystic power. You know the spiritual science perfectly well. You are the most exalted of all learned sages, and you have descended for the benefit of all human society. See, Jad Bharat, Kibe Vipra Kibe Nyasi Shudra Kenenai, Jai Krishna Tattva Veta Sei Guru Hai. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. There is no consideration of bodily birth or family when it comes to spiritual knowledge. This may sound like a contradiction, but it works both ways. A good family heritage is a big bonus, but at the same time, it is not a restraint. By taking birth in a high family, one does not automatically become self-realized. But at the same time, if one has a birth in high family, there's a very good chance that he can take to spiritual practices easily. So if one comes from a very low family, then there's every likelihood that his mind would be influenced by the lower modes. To take birth in a low family means, Krishna is saying, to those who are demonic, I cast them into lower births. So certainly to take birth in a lower family indicates a debility on the part of spiritual qualification. But at the same time, it is not a disqualification. Somehow or the other, if one comes to the shelter of a pure devotee spiritual master, one can advance himself very quickly. But then the key point is that one has to surrender completely. Tad vidyarartham sagurum evavi gachet. One has to take shelter, One has to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. Shelter means complete shelter. One should not think of competing with the spiritual master. Oh, he looks like me. He sounds like me. Maybe I could be better than him. Let me see if I can exceed him in knowledge. All these are symptoms of a Shudra, a lack of surrender. One should understand that spiritual master has been sent by Krishna. So like when we think of Srila Prabhupada, so many times his own disciples were competing with him. And Srila Prabhupada used to mention that amongst the Westerners, there's a misconception that, I learned a little bit of Sanskrit and immediately I am qualified. I am self-realized. Now I can dictate to my spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada complained so many times that Westerners acquire a little bit of knowledge and immediately become proud of it. This is the symptom of a lowest class of Shudra. But nowadays we see even in India, 25, 30 years ago when I joined a movement, at that time, people were very sober. There was a lot of respect for spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada was revered. Now people are questioning. Even the most neophyte, the lowest class of devotees, even they question Srila Prabhupada. Oh, this is not in our mood, or this is not the mood, or this or that. It's all nonsense. What mood? What is the mood of a Shudra? What is the mood of a Malecha? They're like low class people. What is the value of their mood? They're animals. You can't compare yourself to Srila Prabhupada. You can't say, oh, Prabhupada is saying like this, but this is animal behavior, lowest class. Such a person will only take birth as a dog, because that's the consciousness. The dog also, as soon as he's fed, he starts showing his teeth and barking. So as soon as a low class devotee, he receives some knowledge from the spiritual master, immediately he thinks himself qualified to correct the spiritual master. That is a very, very dangerous fallacy. One should understand, like Srila Prabhupada said, that I was always like a fool in front of my spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada very frankly used to say that when my spiritual master spoke, I could not understand what he was speaking. Actually, nobody could understand what he was saying. He spoke such mystical subject matters. So I just tried to listen. So you see, that is humility of Srila Prabhupada. He is himself a self-realized soul, but he's still saying that because he considered his spiritual master to be his master. Chakshudan dilo jai janme janme prabhusi. Not that I am taking a spiritual master for such time as I become qualified, then I don't need him. So many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, they left. One disciple of Prabhupada, he went to Radhakund and he started living there. And he wrote to Prabhupada, my dear Swamiji, please give me blessings. My dear Swamiji, I have found a spiritual master who can give me higher knowledge. Please give me blessings so that I can proceed further. So Prabhupada wrote one line letter. He said, yes, you have my blessings. May you never attain Krishna. So you see, Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado, yasya prasadat nagati kutopi. See, spiritual master is like a doctor or a lawyer. You don't hide anything from your lawyer or from your doctor. You have to tell everything. It may be very embarrassing, but you have to say it all because he's here to cure the disease. One may be addicted to so many bad habits, but one has to tell the spiritual master because these bad habits are results of Rajoguna and Tamoguna. And spiritual master has come to deliver you from this, these disgusting habits. So by telling him, you are actually revealing your heart. Actually, spiritual master may say, oh, that's bad, please stop it. But that's the mystical part of bhakti. That such instructions are heard by Krishna. They are actually, because spiritual master is representing Krishna, such instructions are immediately coming from Krishna. And with these instructions comes the strength to follow these instructions. And immediately the disciple can see that his heart is becoming purified. That's the mystery of bhakti. Guru is not a former, is not like a talking head or a puppet on a platform. Guru is a representative of Krishna. He has to be respected as such and he has to be accepted as such. Unless one feels respect and affection for the spiritual master, one is not going to progress at all. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. You said that we need to tell everything to the spiritual master.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, how is that possible? People hardly get to even see their spiritual master.
Well,
so that sort of exchange is actually required. But
yeah, that is true. That's like a travesty of the system. But like Srila Prabhupada himself did not meet his spiritual master much. But that should be the spirit. That should be the spirit. One may meet the spiritual master, one may not. The spirit must be of total surrender. The spiritual master is not going to say anything which will be like detrimental to the disciple, that, hey, you are my disciple, now you take sannyas tomorrow and come and join me. Spiritual master will not make unreasonable demands on the disciple. So one has to be ready. There must be complete willingness to reveal everything. Nowadays we see that disciples hardly talk, whether Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, disciples hide so many things. Oh, it's okay. It's what harm if I don't tell? This is mine. Why should I reveal it to anyone? This itself is like a very bad tendency. Because there is no confidentiality with the spiritual master. There is no confidentiality with Krishna also. Krishna will let you stay in material nature. Enjoy the material life. So you see, like Srila Prabhupada was willing to talk anything. His spiritual master gave him an instruction, he was ready to follow it. He dedicated his whole life to it. The mood should be
people
of
just say,
complete-
means when you ask certain senior devotees, they just say that you just meditate on your spiritual master and like by telepathy try to convey everything. It's just a little difficult to digest,
Yeah, you do need, like Prabhupada was entertaining so many letters disciples used to write, so at least there should be some medium. Otherwise, what's the use of a spiritual master then? There is a spiritual master, but he won't talk to you. So how does that serve any purpose? So yes, that is true. One must have some intimate connection with the spiritual master. Of course, when one comes to the point of accepting a spiritual master, one should already be ready to sacrifice the material life. Because that is the time when one approaches spiritual master. So that means one should be willing to reveal one's heart in confidence. No, I mean, I understand today's situation is very complicated. Devotees are not simple-minded at all. Neophyte devotees are even worse. They're addicted to bad habits, and they're all top to bottom are, kind of polluted with political thought thinking. What do I gain? How do I increase my power, my influence, and this and that? So yes, that's a very vitiated, very polluted atmosphere. I can understand that. But the willingness should always be there.
In fact, they are told, okay, whatever you want to reveal to your spiritual master, you reveal that to the counselors. But then it is also seen that, there is confidentiality is not retained, and there's a lot of bitterness because of that, it spreads.
So that happens when the counselor is not qualified. So the Shiksha Guru must also be qualified. Otherwise, this won't work. And counselor is not a psychotherapist. Spiritual master is not a psychological consultant. The idea is that you reveal your heart, you want to get rid of it. Spiritual master must advise you on the basis of Shastra, not some sentimental mush.
Exactly.
I mean, you see, like it's very difficult. Many people ask me these questions related to modern day society, modern ISKCON and all this. But the point here is, if you really want to understand, like Srila Prabhupada says that a bona fide disciple is as rare as a bona fide spiritual master. The point is that, how much is the sincerity within our heart? And the point also is that, how much willing we are to surrender completely. So, if you want to buy gold, you need to know what are the characteristics of gold. You may not know the precise caratage of gold when you hold it in your hand, but you should have some idea what pure metal and impure metal looks like. So when you are approaching a Shiksha Guru or a Diksha Guru, you should understand the qualification of Shiksha or Diksha Guru also. So you study the scriptures, hear what the Shiksha Guru is saying, compare the two. Then you can ask some relevant questions also. And satisfy yourself that this person who is speaking is actually speaking Siddhant. And he has the maturity to accept this responsibility. Not that he's sitting there out of some pride, okay, now I'm a big man. Let me see how many people are under me. That is a hellish mentality, actually. One should never think that one's god brother or god sisters are below him. So there are many qualifications. Actually, see, if you're asking a practical question, my practical answer is study Srila Prabhupada's letters and instructions, because there he's specifically addressing these issues. See how Prabhupada is handling subject matters and see whether, you accept that.
Right. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So text 20.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, one more question.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, why here the Maharaj Raghuguna is talking about, he said, you are a direct representative of Kapil Dev, the incarnation of God and plenary portion of knowledge. Why didn't he say you are the direct representative of Krishna?
Well,
Kapil Dev ji, you especially call out.
Knowledge by the supreme personality of Godhead, Kapila Dev. Because Kapila Dev specifically descended as an Acharya. He did nothing else. Kapila Dev was born for that one particular purpose only. Krishna came and performed many activities, but Kapila Dev was specifically incarnated as a spiritual master. I mean,
giving knowledge of matter and soul. Maybe that's why.
Yes, and there is a very important point also. Devahuti's prayers before Kapila Dev speaks. This is, my dear Lord, please give me that knowledge by which one can become free from the fear of material life. So he came to deliver from fear also.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What is the period when Krishna as a Bal Krishna was born in Dwapar Yuga?
Yeah, Krishna was born in Dwapar Yuga.
Isn't it? So by that time, Krishna was not born. Kapil Dev was born by that time.
Oh, this is a different Yuga. This Maharaj Bharat's pastime is taking in another Yuga, not in this Dwapar Yuga. Exactly.
Then I thought, because the original Krishna is different. And what Krishna we are talking, the Krishna of Mathura, is a, of course, Krishna, but in different role.
Yes, Vasudeva Krishna.
Vasudeva Krishna. So he must not have been born by that time.
Yeah, he's Devaki Nandan.
Devaki Nandan.
This is Vasudeva, not Nandanandan Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Text 20. Savay Bhaval Loka Nirikshanaartham.
Savya Bhaval
Loka Nirikshanartha.
Avyakta Lingo Vicharatyapi Srit.
Avyakta
Lingo Vicharatyapi
Srit.
Yogeshwaranam Gatimanda Buddhi.
Yogeshwaranam Gatimanda Buddhi.
Katham Vichikshita Grahanubandha.
Katham Vichikshita
Grihanubandha. May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada Ji ki jai. Translation. It is not the fact that your good self is the direct representative of Kapil Dev, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To examine people and see who is actually a human being, who is not. You have presented yourself to be a deaf and dumb person. Are you not moving this way upon the surface of the world? I am very attached to family life and worldly activities, and I am blind to spiritual knowledge. Nonetheless, I am now present before you and am seeking enlightenment from you. How can I advance in spiritual life? Purport. Although Maharaj Rahugana was playing the part of a king, he had been informed by Jad Bharat that he was not a king, nor was Jad Bharat deaf and dumb. Such designations were simply covering of the spirit soul. Everyone must come to this knowledge. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.13, Dehino asmin yatha dehe. Everyone is encased within the body. Since the body is never identical with the soul, the bodily activities are simply illusionary. In the association of such a sadhu as Jad Bharat, Maharaj Rahugana came to the awareness that his activities as a royal authority were simply illusory phenomena. He therefore agreed to receive knowledge from Jad Bharat, and that was the beginning of his perfection. Tad vidnatham sa gurum eva bhigachet. A person like Maharaj Rahugana, who was very inquisitive to know the value of life and the spiritual science, must approach a personality like Jad Bharat. Tasmat Gurum Prapadyeta Jignasu Shreya Uttama. Bhagavatam 11.3.21. One must approach a guru like Jad Bharat, a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to inquire about the goal of human life. Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So you see, this is a symptom of association with a bona fide spiritual master. Immediately one is able to see himself. This is not a question of humility or anything. Actually, Srila Prabhupada also defines humility as seeing the things as they are, knowing who's the doer, seeing things as they are. This is what humility means. So when Maharaj Rahugana says, I am very much attached to family and worldly activities, I am blind to spiritual knowledge. So he's speaking the truth. So he's not justifying that I am a great Grihastha like Prajapati Daksh did. I am such a great Grihastha, and this Shiva is such a low class personality. He was blaspheming Lord Shiva like that. Now here we see, but Maharaj Rahugana, immediately he's able to identify his position. And now he's saying, nonetheless, I am present before you and I am seeking enlightenment from you. So, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Human birth means that one has to inquire about the real nature of life. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now don't inquire about material life, family and wealth and so on and so forth. Now inquire about Brahman. Who am I? Uttishta Jagrat, Prapya Varan Nivodita. Try to understand. Uttishta Jagrat, Prapya Varan Nivodita. Now just see, arise, awake, and see the great boon you have received in the form of a human life. So as soon as one becomes aware of one's position as a human being, one should approach a spiritual master. So, so he says, he had, although Maharaj Rahugana was playing the part of a king, he had been informed by Jad Bharat that he was not a king, nor was Jad Bharat deaf and dumb. So these are just bodily coverings. And Maharaj Rahugana came to awareness that his activities as royal authority were simply illusory phenomena. He therefore agreed to receive knowledge from Jad Bharat. Now, this is very vital. Now think of it, statement sounds so innocuous. Unless we think that our activities are illusory, we are not going to make progress in spiritual life. Think it over. This statement is not as simple as it sounds. We are not progressing in bhakti because we are attached to this illusion. We are not even theoretically considering the possibility that this is just an illusion and not the reality. So now you see Maharaj Rahugana has come to that realization that he is living an illusion. Therefore, he wants that knowledge by which he can be delivered. This was the same position that Devahuti had. She was explaining to Kapila Dev, she's apologizing and requesting him. She's saying that I got great fortune in the form of Kardam Muni as my husband, but instead of asking him relevant inquiries for development of spiritual identity, I spent the time in useless material enjoyment. Therefore, now I am in a fearful stage. So, my dear husband, now my dear son, O Supreme Lord, please give me that knowledge by which one becomes free from all fear of material life. So you see, at first we have to be convinced that we are living an illusion. Not that I am an engineer, I am a doctor, I am a great orator, I am fair, I am tall, I am beautiful, I am handsome. No, if we think like that, we are caught in that illusion. At least now we are very convinced, but at least theoretically we should think to ourselves that this is an illusion and I need to get out of it. You must feel the need to get out of illusion before you can actually think, before you can actually make inquiries to get out of it. Most devotees are actually happy with their illusion, and their devotional service is nothing more than a mere formality. Chanting 16 hours, reading books, okay, that's it. No, but try to understand the real purpose. We are doing this to get out of this entanglement. In your heart, be convinced that this is an illusion, this is nonsense. So think like this, that this, my body, my education, my qualification, my family, this is an illusion which is going to put me in great pain. Therefore, my Lord, at least let me come out of this illusion. I am attached to it. I am not able to give it up myself. Lord, please take me out of it. Then our bhakti will start. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labte param. One gets bhakti only after attaining Brahman platform. So at least try to reach that platform. Try to be convinced that you are living an illusion. It's a very nice, very pleasant illusion. Actually, it's not, but still we are thinking it's a very pleasant illusion. So at least, pray for that knowledge by which you'll understand that this is an illusion, not the reality. Make that your first prayer. All this Radha Kund and Vrindavan and Ras Leelas can wait for later. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here? Okay. If not, then we stop today. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam ji.
Thank you,
Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Dandavat Pranam.